Hello, everybody. We're here in Austin, Texas, and we're here at Consensus 2022 by CoinDesk, the festival for the decentralized world. And today is day 2. And today we are here with Pat White, who's the co-founder and CEO of Bitwave. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome. So please tell us about your journey into the whole decentralized world.
Yeah, so I've been in crypto for a very long time. I worked at a software security company called Fortify, and so I was on the early crypto mailing list before crypto meant cryptocurrency, back when it meant cryptography. So I actually was on one of the mailing lists when Satoshi sent out their white paper. So the first time I read that, I was pretty much immediately smitten. Like I'm an engineer by training. I really liked the idea. Everything in that white paper. I mean, people give it a lot of credit for. They give it credit for economics and different things like that. But from an engineering perspective, it was a brilliant paper. So I loved that part of it. I followed it. I was pretty early into crypto. I did a little bit of mining. I did never mined that much. I should have just bought a bunch back in the day. And then ended up, my personal story is I work in enterprise software. Like my entire career is doing startups around enterprise software problems. So I've worked on startups in the real-time communication space. I've worked on startups in the enterprise search space. So for me, I sort of saw crypto early on as an enthusiast, but then also through the lens of, is there a startup to do here at some point? Like, will there be an enterprise business-centric startup to do around crypto at some point? And certainly in 2010, there wasn't. Right. In 2010, it was just a bunch of enthusiasts and people that like this stuff and, crazy people getting into this. And so for me, I kind of was working on other projects. I had other startups and things like that. So finally, it wasn't until about 2018 that the industry had matured enough that you had real businesses using digital assets that we could go and do an actual startup focusing on how to enable digital assets for enterprises.
Right. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I've been talking to people who are into crypto projects. They all have a very unique way of getting into the whole decentralized world. So, tell us more about Bitwave.
Yeah.
What is Bitwave all about? When was it founded? And where are you headquartered? Or do you have headquarters?
Gosh, what we do, technically we're a US company, so we have to have headquarters. But it is, we have people from Ukraine to Australia and everywhere in between. We grew from 2 people to 40 people over the pandemic, which is just so interesting because what are you going to tell people as you're hiring them that you have to live in this 30-mile square area, even though we're never going to see you in person and everything like that? We just didn't. So we hire people all over the world, but I myself am in San Francisco with about 4 or 5 of the other people. So Bitwave, we've been around since 2018, and we are focused on exactly one mission, which is how do you enable digital assets for enterprises. So a lot of the people that are in this space, you think, I'm sure a lot of your viewers have to do their own crypto taxes, right?
Right.
So they'll use products like, CoinTracker or Zenledger. Right. That's not what we do. We are focused on how do businesses use digital assets within their business, and what are all of the back office processes and tooling that they need. So for instance, like an example I always like to give is like, let's say I decide to give you 1 Bitcoin for this interview today. It's not happening, not paid, but but let's say that happened. As a business, and I do that as a business. As a business, I've picked up a bunch of different obligations from that. So I picked up an accounting obligation, which is I need to basically track that fair market value.
Right.
And I need to get that into my general ledger. I need to get that into my accounting system like QuickBooks. Right. So let's take $31,000 today. I need to book an expense of $31,000. Second of all, I have all the same tax obligations that individuals do, right? I just disposed of Bitcoin at $31,000. So if I acquired it at $40,000, I just picked up a capital loss. If I acquired it at $20,000, I picked up a capital gain. The business has to track that. Third, I might have a compliance obligation. Like I just sent you a bunch of money. I might need to send you a 1099 MISC if you're a U.S. resident. Like that's legally what you have to do. Right. And then finally, if you are a large public company, or if someone that's audited by big financial services companies, like one of our customers is OpenSea, they're audited. They have to do something that's called impairment, which is a special accounting treatment to follow U.S. GAAP. So they end up having now a not just their tax cost basis, but also a accounting cost basis. So that's for 1 single transaction. Imagine doing that for 40 million transactions, which a lot of our customers have. So we have software that helps you basically take really, really hard tax and accounting problems from your back office, scale to millions of transactions, track all of it in a compliant way, work with your auditors to get your actual financials ready. So we're really working with the people who are, if you think about any of the projects you talk to, at some point they're going to take funding, right? Maybe a VC is going to put money in.
Right.
In order for a VC to put money in, you have to present them with financials. You have to show you, like, here's how much money we made.
Right.
We're the people that help you know how much money you made.
Right. Okay. So basically, if I understand, Bitwave is kind of providing, in the layman's language, the accounting services, the tax services.
Yep. So the accounting software and for crypto, we work with a lot of crypto native companies like Optimism and OpenSea. We work with a lot of non-crypto companies. What we are seeing more and more is this move. What the 2022 for us has been the move of non-crypto companies, Web 2 companies, large financial institutions into the Web 3 world. Right. Like that's what we're really seeing across the entire board. So, GameStop, for instance, has been a recent big addition where they are now deep in the crypto space. Where they're a bricks and mortar retailer. Mm-hmm. So the 2022 for us has really been about enterprises that you might not have thought were going to get into crypto, starting to get into crypto. One of the things that we do is work with them in their processes and their internal systems.
Right. I think that's really exciting because there's a lot of bubble, or a lot of people don't understand how to work with taxes when it comes to crypto.
Yep.
And I think you're kind of solving that problem for them.
Yep.
And especially with the bigger projects.
Yeah.
Wow. So what's the roadmap ahead for Bitwave?
It's, for us, it's all about our mission is to enable digital assets for enterprises. Okay. So every year that kind of changes what that means. Mm-hmm. We've done a very good job getting a handle on this tax and accounting problem, but that's not the only problem that businesses run into. They might be invoicing in crypto. So they might literally send, like, one of their vendors, they might send them an invoice that says, hey, you owe me 20 Bitcoin. We have customers that do that, and then you have to pay them the Bitcoin. There's a lot of accounting challenges that come into that. Right. We are now seeing more and more people that are paying vendors in crypto. So that's another whole different set of problems, which is how do you, in a good compliant way, pay these vendors using crypto? How do you have wallets to track all of that? We're also now seeing more and more businesses getting into DeFi with their treasury. So a lot of our customers have millions of dollars of digital assets that they keep on their balance sheet. What you want to do is you want to put that into Aave and earn a little bit of yield on it. You want to put it into Compound. You want to, if you yourself have a token, you might want to go into liquidity pool to provide liquidity. So we have really, really robust DeFi support we've had to add. At that point, you need to be tracking your gains and losses, your impermanent loss, your APY, all that kind of stuff as a business. You have to track day over day interest income and all of it. So every bit of this gets more and more complicated. And we're also looking at how do we enable that ecosystem? How do we bring in some of the KYC, AML, DeFi pools and get our customers access to those pools? How do we get our customers access to staking protocols? How do we help them think about the entire CFO? We call it the CFO stack because at a lot of businesses, every part of the CFO office, which is, you think about the chief financial officer has accounting, he has tax, he has treasury, he has FP&A. There's like 5 or 6 different roles that roll up to him. All of them are impacted by crypto. And the way we approach this is providing solutions to all of those different teams.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And are you just based in the US, or do you also have a global presence?
We have a global presence, and it's a really interesting side effect of the lack of regulation in this space.
Right.
So an interesting side effect of the lack of regulation is we've had to build our software very flexibly. Right. Like when all of the customers they come to us all have different opinions about everything. Like literally, like a great example is when you transform your Ethereum into WETH, right? When you do a wrapping function like that. Everyone disagrees about whether that's taxable or not. Some people think it's taxable. Some people think it's not taxable.
Right.
And so we've had to basically be able to handle all of those types of weird edge cases. So we've almost inadvertently built a product that works across the US, across the UK, EU, Asia. We have customers pretty much everywhere. And in some cases, I mean, if you like, a lot of these crypto projects are in multiple places. They have a US entity, they have a Cayman entity, they have a BVI entity, and they have an Asia entity. I mean, that's very, very, very common to see. So we work across the entire world.
Right. So somebody can have a project, let's say, based out of Sri Lanka or some country, but their entity is based in BVI
Sure.
or Cayman Islands or the US.
Or both, or all three.
Or all three, yeah. And you can provide services to those projects as well.
Exactly.
In doing.
Yeah.
Wow, that's exciting.
It is. It's really interesting. It's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you a question away from Bitwave.
Sure.
So, what do you think? I mean, you did touch on that point. What do you think about the regulations at a global level? And because we see a lot of projects, a lot of regulatory authorities are confused.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, I think that way.
Yeah.
But and also the people are confused.
Yeah.
So, where do you think this is heading towards?
You know,
And what needs to be done?
You know, it's a good question. I think regulation is not a bad thing. I think it's inevitable. There's like the ease of scamming people out of real money is such that we will see more regulation in this space. It is inevitable, and it is good. The issue from my perspective has not been lack of or excess regulation. The issue has been lack of clarity around it. So one of the things that Biden did that was really good, he wrote an executive order that ordered the different agencies within the federal government to kind of figure things out, right? It's a really funny way to think about it because you kind of think like, well, you're the president, just figure things out. But the problem is the way the laws are written in the U.S., especially, there's a lack of clarity if the CFTC, which is the financial, one of the financial trade bureaus, or the SEC or the IRS, like who really has the regulatory authority? There's a gray area there, and honestly, a lot of government agencies thrive in that gray area. Because as soon as you draw a line and say, no, it's not the SEC, it's the CFTC, you have basically taken power away from the SEC. So, but then neither of those organizations wants to risk that they're the one who loses the power. So from the way that the politics of these organizations tends to work is they really like when there's a lot of gray area because they can both assert themselves as a regulatory. So Biden coming out and sort of putting a dictum that says like, hey guys, figure this out, was really, really good because it meant that they actually are going to be drawing lines. There will be one agency that is in charge of tokens. There will be one agency that's in charge. And that was a big part of the Loomis bill, was actually the Loomis-Gillibrand bill, was actually stating that and sort of drawing those lines around that. So regulation is inevitable. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It is one thing I talk about a lot is there are crypto ideologues, like, crypto libertarians and things like that, which is really where all this started. Like that's, that was why Satoshi came out with this. Like his first thing was, brink of new bailout to bank. Like that is a crypto libertarian statement about not wanting to about how you print money.
Right.
But what's happened is that crypto has turned into this world where it is this massive, you talked, the name of this conference is like the Decentralized Conference.
Right.
It is a massive disintermediary of financial service providers. So what I often talk about is the idea that like 2 years ago, 10 years ago, it was very hard to program money, right? The people who were programming money were the banks. Like if you had a database that had your customer assets, you could program money, but that was it. There's 10 of those companies in the US. What crypto has brought, when you step away from the politics and the ideologue, what crypto has really brought is the ability for 100,000, 200,000 of the world's best engineers to program money. That's why you've seen such innovation. That's why you've seen such cool stuff like Aave and all the DeFi stuff that happens. So within that context, regulation is good because you are not punishing people from a libertarian perspective with regulation. You are encouraging growth of financial services and financial systems that are peer-to-peer, much faster, much less friction, no middlemen between them. And that's really, really good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. Just last question. Do you think there is future for the decentralized world?
Of course, I mean, it is. bear market or not, like there's a great quote. One of my favorite radio programs or podcasts is Marketplace, and the guy who runs that's a guy named Kaiser Rajal, and he always says something which he says like the stock market is not the economy, right? So like the stock market can be down, the economy can doing great, and vice versa. That's really common, right? The stock market is a measure of sentiment, the economy is a measure of actual execution. So the price, I say that a lot, which is the price of Bitcoin is not the Web3 ecosystem. Like it is a component. Like certainly, like the day after there's a huge correction on Bitcoin, a lot of the people that come into our office, well, our Slack channels are a little bit sad. Don't get me wrong. Like we all have crypto and stuff like that. But the actual onslaught of continuing to build these ecosystems and the disintermediation of all of this is just so powerful that it is so segmented from the everyday price movements and things like that. Like the idea of being able to completely disintermediate a company like JP Morgan. We have customers that issue bonds onto the blockchain. Right? JP Morgan charges 3%. If you're issuing $1 billion of bonds, 3% is real money. So if you can go from issuing that through JP Morgan and paying $30 million or issue it directly onto the blockchain and paying $20 of fees to Polygon, like with Polygon it'd be 20 cents, right? You're paying 20 cents. Like it just is such an incredible, powerful disintermediation force there. So it's an absolute inevitability. It might look different. It'll change how it, like the shape of crypto over the next few years will certainly change, but it is an inevitability that these peer-to-peer markets and these peer-to-peer financial systems will just continue to explode.
Wow. Yeah. Exciting. Well, thank you so much for helping us understand more about Bitwave.
Yeah.
And I think you are making a difference in the space, and that's so important. But thank you so much for talking to us.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
So much.